The Galactic Academy broadcast halls were not built for silence. They were built for spectacle. Layered rings of hovering platforms, lacquered with shimmering hollow screens and nebular lights. Every inch of it screaming the pride of 1,000 civilizations. Normally the air thrummed with student chatter, debates and the pulsing synth chimes of interstellar politics being performed like theater. But today, silence ruled, not because of fear, because of laughter. It rippled across the hall like an infection, sharp, electric, and humiliating. Alien students from dozens of worlds leaned over their consoles, snickering as a single title flashed across the main hollow wall. Archive 9B, The Human War Ban. Too dangerous for the galaxy. Humans banned war. The primitives? A trio of crystalline Cythrians cackled, their fractal bodies chiming. They barely survived their own planet, rasped a scaled Yolth warrior, mandibles clicking with amusement. How could they threaten the galaxy? A dozen voices joined in. Humanity. Dangerous. The words didn't fit in anyone's mouth anymore. Not in the year 9000 CE, 9 millennia after humans supposedly vanished into self-exile. The ban, ancient, dusty, and rarely discussed, had become a meme, a punchline, a historical joke assigned to first-year students studying galactic conflict prevention. Mocking it was practically a tradition, but one student wasn't laughing. On platform 47J, deep in the technician pit below the main rings, Learnven stared at the headline with a tight jaw and a heart that thudded uncomfortably against his ribs. He was young for a data technician, just past his second decade, but he'd been taught to feel the weight of archives the way other species felt weather. He wasn't sure why the mockery bothered him today. Humans were long gone, their worlds abandoned, their archives locked, their warnings ignored. Still, there was something about that title that felt wrong, as if the universe itself disagreed with the laughter. Lyarn exhaled slowly. They shouldn't joke about the ban, he muttered. Beside him, an elder tech, Marrokel, snorted. You take the archives too seriously, boy. Let the children laugh. Maybe, Lyarn whispered, but the unease remained. A distant hum pulsed under the floor, low, rhythmic, almost like a heartbeat, a warning he didn't yet understand. The temptation. His station chimed. Restricted access detected. Archive 9B raw footage available. Lyarn froze. He shouldn't have gotten that notification. No one should. The raw archive hadn't been opened in centuries. He swallowed, pulse rising. A technician's job was to inspect anomalies. But this, should I report this? He asked quietly. Marrokel waved a dismissive hand. But it's probably corrupted metadata again. Course it for deletion and come help me with the Tau V crawler logs. Lyarn hesitated. Something tugged at him. An instinct, a whisper, a soft nudge he couldn't name, almost like a presence, a hint of order behind coincidence. He'd heard humans talk about such things in old recordings, faith. Lyarn didn't believe in gods, but he did believe in patterns, and this felt like a pattern that wanted to be seen. His finger hovered over the console. Just one scan, he said softly. The file obeyed. A single frame appeared. Not words, not a symbol, not a document, a video timestamp. Current. Live feed. Distance, 38.1 light years. Object class. Unknown human vessel. Lyarn's breath left him. Impossible. Humans were gone. Their ships hadn't flown for thousands of years. The laughter above continued. Loud. Cruel, oblivious. Lyarn felt cold, very slowly. He opened the footage. What? He saw static. A flicker. Then the screen stabilized. A ship emerged from darkness. Massive. Scarred. Its hull plated with archaic metals and impossible geometry. Not sleek like modern cruisers. Not elegant. Not alien, human. Primitive. Brutal. Beautiful. Its engines glowed like a dying star. Symbols ran along its sides. Ancient Terran script. Faded but unmistakable. Lyarn zoomed in. The nameplate was cracked but readable. TSS Promise. Terran Salvation Ship. He swallowed hard. Inside the ship, shadows moved. Humanoid silhouettes in armored suits preparing something. Not weapons. Not at first glance. Rituals, prayers. Some stood with heads bowed. Some touched their helmets. Some whispered in a language that felt heavy even through static. Liern leaned closer. One man, helmet off, looked up toward the ceiling, eyes closed, lips moving silently. A prayer. Why? Why now? Why did it feel like someone wanted Liern to see this? His console chimed. Upload recommended. High-interest content for Academy students. He froze. This wasn't a recommendation. It was a lie from the system, a glitch, a temptation. Uploading this. It would violate 8 treaties, end his career, maybe get him erased, but the footage, it felt like truth. And truth didn't belong in cages. Above him, the students were still laughing, still mocking something they didn't understand. And in the corner of the footage, a human voice murmured, not words, but a tone saturated with a kind of quiet conviction Liern had never heard. Guide us. Liern stared, and something in him broke. He hit upload. The broadcast at first. Nothing happened. Then the main hollow wall rippled violently. The laughter cut off. The hall dimmed. The footage exploded across every screen in the academy. Students gasped. Some screamed. Some froze, eyes wide. The Cythrians' crystalline laughter collapsed into silence so sharp it hurt. The Yolth warriors' mandibles clicked in confusion. This cannot be real. The footage zoomed. The human ship loomed. The praying crew whispered. And then the audio stabilized just long enough for a single sentence to pierce the hall. Initiating mobilization. For Earth, the room erupted in chaos. What is this? Is this fabricated? Humans are extinct, aren't they? Liern stepped back from his console, heart pounding so hard he thought others might hear it. He expected fear. And he got it. But beneath the fear, something else spread through the hall. Wonder. Awe. A quiet, trembling realization. Humans were not dead. They were in motion, and the universe had just seen the unedited truth. The consequence begins. His supervisors stormed toward him. Liern Ven. What have you? The lights died. Systems crashed. Alarms ignited across the academy. The planetary network began collapsing, one node at a time, as viewers overloaded the system, transmitting the footage across thousands of channels simultaneously. Data storms erupted. Interstellar servers buckled. Orbital relays flickered under the strain. Liern stood amid the chaos, trembling. He heard his own pulse like thunder. He'd wanted to show them truth. He hadn't expected truth to tear through the galaxy like wildfire. A single thought struck him. I didn't reveal history. I revealed something alive. The footage flickered again. The human ship turned. Its engines flared. A captain's voice rumbled through subspace. Target acquired. Liern's breath caught. Target? What target? The answer came a moment later. A new data fragment. Surfaced, unlocked by the upload. A star map, a coordinate, a destination, the Galactic Academy. Liern felt his skin go cold. He whispered into the storm of alarms and screams around him. What have I done? The alarms didn't stop. They layered over one another, shrill, panicked, metallic, until the entire broadcast hall felt like a single, shaking instrument being played by fear itself. Liern Ven ran, not away from the consoles he had doomed, not toward the exits where students were flooding like a breaking dam, but toward the central data spiral, the tower at the heart of the academy, where the highest authority of information sat coiled in crystalline silence. He didn't know why he ran there. Maybe to undo what he had done. Maybe to understand it. Maybe because something, unseen, nudged him toward truth instead of escape. He could almost feel it, like the entire universe exhaling in his direction. A presence. Quiet, old, watching. He shook off the thought. Now wasn't the time. The academy fractures above him. Hollow screens flickered wildly. Every platform, every ring, every elevated walkway was drowning in panicked light. The footage of the human ship kept looping through corrupted system channels. The audio splitting, crackling, distorting into echoes. Mobilizing. For Earth. Initiate. Guidance. Target. Acquired. Students scrambled for their personal devices. Some tried to delete the footage. Some tried to block it. Some tried to ignore it. All failed. It wasn't just viral, it was alive, moving through networks with intention. A Scythian student screamed as her fractal skin cracked under stress vibrations. Shut it off.
Shut it off!
A towering Korgoth slammed his fists into a wall panel, denting its force barrier. The humans are gone. This is impossible, impossible. Lion pushed past them. His pulse felt like a hammer driving deeper into his chest. Every instinct screamed for him to hide, but something stronger whispered, "Go." So he ran. Internal conflict. His thoughts battered him with every step. I didn't mean to unleash panic. I only wanted them to see the truth. Wasn't that the right thing? Wasn't transparency always the Academy's foundation? But then another thought hit him colder. What if the ban was never a joke? What if it was a warning? What if I unlocked something no civilization was meant to see? His hands shook as he reached the spiral lift. He pressed his palm to the interface. Nothing. No hum. No activation glow. Just dead glass. System-wide collapse. He slammed his fist again. Come on, come on. The lift flickered. A single phrase blinked onto the panel. Manual entry only. The Academy wanted him to turn back, but Liarn stepped inside the data spiral. The lift rose in total darkness. No lights. No guide rails. Only the faint vibration of machinery struggling to remain alive. Liarn's reflection stared back at him in the glass. Wide eyes. Trembling skin, face drained of color. A man realizing he might have become the villain in a story he didn't understand. Halfway up the tower, the lift halted hard. Liarn slammed into the wall. Breath knocked from his lungs, then a voice crackled through the panel, not the Academy system. Voice. Not an alien voice, a human voice, male, deep, calm. Do not be afraid. Liarn froze, his heartbeat. Vanished into silence, the voice continued. We've been waiting a very long time. Static swallowed the rest. Liarn leaned toward the panel. Who are you? Nothing answered. Only the groaning machinery and distant alarms below. The lift resumed moving. Liarn whispered a shaky breath. Not possible. Humans don't have access to Academy lines. They can't patch comms. But he didn't believe his own words. Something was happening far beyond systems or protocol. Something with direction. Purpose. Maybe even intention. The core chamber, the lift doors opened into blinding white. The data spiral's core chamber was an enormous cathedral of light, pillars of crystalline memory cores stretching upward like frozen lightning. They pulsed faintly, flickering under data overload. Dozens of archivist drones lay scattered across the floor, overheated and smoking. At the center of the room floated the primary node, a massive sphere of transparent memory housing every unaltered and restricted archive the galaxy had ever collected. Now glowed red, not system red, organic red. Pulse. Liarn stepped forward slowly. Node, run diagnostic, he said. The sphere answered in a distorted voice. Diagnostic impossible. Why? The sphere brightened as if looking at him. Human interference detected. Liarn felt the bottom of his stomach drop. Interference? How? Their systems haven't been compatible with ours for... The sphere interrupted. The footage uploaded was not archival. It was active surveillance. Liarn's throat tightened. I know. But we don't even have human surveillance feeds. You do now. Liarn stepped back. What does that mean? The sphere began projecting. Not the footage he had uploaded. Something. Knew a map, a galactic starfield, a trajectory. The human ship's course, and then a second. Huntington intercept line. Heading directly toward the Galactic Academy. Yadao, 11 hours. Liarn felt his knees weaken, his breath trembled. This is my fault, he whispered. Not to the machine. Not to the galaxy, to himself. A quiet voice inside answered. Or maybe you were chosen to reveal it. He didn't know where that thought came from. He didn't want to. The captain's glimpse, the projection flickered again. Now, it showed the interior of the human vessel. Man, broad-shouldered, armor-clad, stood at the command platform. His eyes were shadowed by fatigue, resolve, and something deeper. Faith. Liarn felt it the same way he felt heat near a plasma core. Something unseen radiated through the footage. The captain raised his hand toward the screen, toward Liarn, as if he could see him, and then he spoke. If you can hear me, prepare them. Liarn's skin crawled. Prepare who? The captain leaned forward, face half lit by emergency lights. Everyone. Liarn stumbled backward. This wasn't a threat. This wasn't an attack. This was a warning. The man's last words echoed through the chamber. When Earth rises, the galaxy will tremble. The projection collapsed into darkness. The first collapse, the floor shook, violently. Memory pillars cracked. Data streams screamed through the air in chaotic arcs of light. The primary node dimmed to a dying glow. Liarn braced himself against a railing as a thunderous roar surged through the chamber, the entire Academy's planetary network going down at once. Screens shattered. Lights died. Silence swallowed everything. Liarn stood alone in the dark, trembling. He felt small, insignificant, terrified. But beneath the terror, a whisper, not in words, in feeling. A sense that he had not caused this. He had uncovered it. That truth had a way of surfacing when it mattered most. That some patterns, some moments were not accidents and far, far away. Something ancient in him wondered if a higher order had placed this truth into his hands, not to destroy him but to prepare him. The lift behind him hissed, open footsteps, heavy, urgent, coming for him. Liarn turned slowly. Part the three, the ones who should not exist. The silhouettes emerging from the lift were wrong, not monstrous. Not threatening, wrong. Liarnven had spent his life cataloging species, memorizing physiologies, studying silhouettes across hundreds of worlds. He could look at any shape and know its origin, its world, its history. But the three figures stepping into the dim, cracked chamber of the data spiral, he had no reference for them. Too tall for Yulth, too balanced for Korgoth, too quiet for Krishel, too grounded for Kiri. Their presence bent the air around them, not physically but perceptually, as if his brain struggled to categorize something it had never been meant to. See? Then the lights flickered and Liarn's breath vanished. They were humans. Actual. Humans, flesh and blood. Breathing. Real. The first one, broad-shouldered, armored in layered plating, surveyed the chamber with a soldier's caution. His helmet stayed sealed, visor reflecting shards of broken crystal light. The second, smaller, wiry, with tools strapped across his chest, moved with restless hands, scanning damaged memory columns. The third, older, face uncovered, eyes sharp but tired, watched Liarn, not with aggression, with recognition, as if he already knew Liarn, as if he'd been waiting for him. Liarn stumbled backwards, the edge of the console jabbing into his spine. This is impossible. Humans! You're extinct. The older human smiled faintly, a tired smile, a sad smile. People keep saying that, he murmured. His voice carried something unfamiliar, warmth, a softness that cut through the terror tightening Liarn's lungs. We're not extinct, the man said quietly. We just stopped announcing ourselves. A truth too heavy, Liarn's throat tightened. How are you here? How did you access the Academy? How? The armored human raised a hand, cutting him off. We're not here to hurt you. Liarn froze. That voice, deep, calm, steady. It was the same voice he'd heard in the lift, the one that had whispered, "Do not be afraid." Liarn felt the hair at the back of his neck. This was the man who'd spoken through a dead comm line. This was the man whose ship he had exposed, the man whose crew prayed before mobilizing. Captain Liarn's mouth went dry. You talked to me, the captain nodded once. To warn you. Warn me of what? The third human, the wiry one, snorted. Everything. The captain shot him a look. The wiry one shrugged. What? It's true. Liarn didn't know whether to cry or hyperventilate. What do you want? He whispered. The captain took one slow step forward. Answers, he said, and help. His visor reflected the glow of the primary node. You've shown the galaxy something it wasn't ready to see. Liarn's voice cracked. I didn't mean to. I know, the captain said softly. Liarn flinched at the gentleness in his tone. A soldier's voice should have been harsh, cold, authoritative. But this one carried patience. As if he understood Liarn's fear, as if he'd felt it himself once. It wasn't an accident, the captain added. Whether you believe in chance or design. Liern's breath hitched. There it was again. That subtle thread of something greater, not preached, not declared, just present. The older man glanced at the ceiling of the shattered chamber. Some things are meant to surface, the wiry one muttered, even if they take half the galactic network with them. The data spiral awakens. The primary node pulsed suddenly. Red, violent, urgent. Liern turned. What's happening now? The wiry human jogged to a broken console. The network's collapsing faster than predicted. How fast? The captain asked. Minutes. Liern grabbed the railing for balance. The entire Academy's data grid will fail. No, the wiry human corrected. The planet's data grid will fail. Liern felt the floor tilt beneath him. You caused this? The captain shook his head. We didn't cause it. His visor turned toward Liern. You did. When you revealed the truth. Liern swallowed hard. His mistake, his curiosity, his sense of justice, had triggered a cascade beyond anything he could have expected. I'm sorry, Liern whispered. The captain stepped closer, lowering his voice. Truth is never a mistake. Liern's chest tightened. No one in the Academy, had ever spoken to him like that. With conviction, with empathy, with a strange, warm certainty that felt almost impossible from a species that had once burned their own world. The captain continued. But timing matters, and your truth came early. Liern frowned. Early for what? The captain hesitated just for a breath, then, early for our return. Liern's pulse froze. The warning. The older human rested a hand on Liern's, shoulder warm, real grounding. You saw the footage, he said quietly. Our ship. Our mobilization. Yes, Liern whispered. What are you mobilizing for? Why now? The older man exchanged a look with the captain. Something unspoken passed between them. A weight, a memory, a fear. We didn't come here to start a war, the older man said. Then why? The captain answered. To stop one. Liern stared. A chill crawled up his spine. We sensed a threat, the captain said, one the galaxy isn't prepared to face. One that doesn't belong to humans, or any known species, Liern swallowed. A new enemy? No. The captain's voice dropped. A very old one, the wiry human added. Older than recorded time. Older than your archives. Older than your gods, Liern blinked. Older than what? The wiry human opened his mouth. The captain lifted a hand to stop him. Not here. Not while the network listens. Liern felt a tremor of dread. The primary node flickered again. Dimming. Failing. The entire chamber vibrated with the sound of overloading memory cores. The older man stepped back, eyes narrowing. We don't have time. The captain turned to Liern one last time. When the grid falls, the Academy will panic. Your leaders will assume we are the threat. They will hunt us. They will blame you. Liern's chest tightened painfully. Then why tell me any of this? He whispered. The captain tilted his head. Because you listened. He reached for Liern's hand, pressed something into his palm. A small metal disc. Cold. Old. Engraved with symbols. Liern didn't recognize. What is this? Liern asked. The captain answered with a single sentence that chilled him. A map of everything your galaxy has forgotten. Liern's fingers curled around it. Instinctively, the chamber lights died. The ground shook. The primary node collapsed inward, and the captain's final words cut through the darkness like a blade. Run. When the floor split open, it didn't sound like destruction. It sounded like something breathing. A deep, resonant exhale, ancient, heavy, and full of dust that had slept beneath the Academy longer than the Academy itself had existed. The chamber shook violently. Lightless cracks spiraled outward like veins, glowing faintly with a color Liern had never seen in any spectrum. Not red, not blue, not ultraviolet, something older, something wrong. Liern staggered, the metal disc still clutched in his trembling hand. What is happening? The wiry human snapped his toolkit shut. It's waking up. What is waking up? Liern pleaded. I don't understand. The captain grabbed Liarn by the arm and pulled him back as a section of the floor collapsed entirely. Crystal memory pillars shattered, falling into an abyss that looked endless, bottomless, a throat of darkness stretching down into the planet's crust. The captain's voice was grim. "You're not supposed to understand." "Not yet?" Liarn felt a surge of desperation. "No, you said you needed my help. Then tell me what's happening." The older human stepped beside him, planting a steadying hand on Liarn's shoulder. "Listen," he said softly. "There are truths too heavy for a single moment." His voice held something beneath it. Calm, but touched with a kind of solemnity Liarn had heard only once before, in the prayerful whisper from the footage. Faith, or the memory of it. The older human continued. "There are forces in your galaxy older than civilization, older than order, older than the idea of gods or the words used to describe them." Liarn's breath hitched. "You mean primordial species?" "No," the captain said. "Older." The floor rumbled again, the lights flickered, a low, rumbling vibration pushed up through Liarn's toes and into his bones, as if the entire academy had become a drum struck by an unseen hand. The wiry human cursed under his breath. "We need to move now." The descent into chaos, the three humans moved with impossible coordination. Precise, efficient, silent, not inhuman, but deeply trained. Liarn followed, stumbling as the world around him tore itself apart. They sprinted down a slanted corridor, the data spiral collapsing above them, shards of crystal raining like falling stars. The captain grabbed Liarn's wrist as they ran. "Hold on!" "To what?" "Your fear," the captain said. Then let it go. Liarn nearly tripped. "That doesn't make sense." "It will." It didn't. But somehow the captain's voice steadied him, just enough to keep running, just enough not to look back at the widening abyss behind them, the Hall of Echoes. The corridor spat them out onto a suspended walkway above the Academy's central plaza, a massive open atrium of glass bridges, sky platforms, and suspended gardens. Now, it was a scene of pure chaos. Students and faculty ran in every direction. Platforms flickered, gravity lifts glitched, hollow screens burst into static. Security drones fired harmless EMPs into empty air, confused, panicked, unable to find a target. A Yolth warrior slammed his tail against a railing. "The humans did this. Find them!" A Korgoth slammed a massive fist into a console. "Network infiltration! This is war!" Liarn's heart twisted. He knew what they would assume. He knew who they would blame. And he knew who had triggered it all. "I didn't mean for this to happen," he whispered. The older human heard him. "Very few great truths begin on purpose." Liarn stared at him, confused. "Why do you speak like that?" The older human smiled faintly. "Old habits." Then, the walkway beneath their feet jolted downward 1/2 meter. The captain swore. "It's spreading." Liarn looked down. Beneath the transparent flooring, the planet's crust glowed with that same unnatural light, branching outward like roots or veins. "Is it alive?" Liarn asked. The wiry human replied without looking up from his scanner. "Not the way you think," Liarn swallowed. "Then how? Move!" The captain barked. A tremor shook the entire atrium. Students screamed. Bridges snapped. Gravity wells flickered, sending bodies weightless before slamming them back down. The humans didn't slow, but they weren't heading toward an exit. They were heading down, toward the heart of the chaos. Liarn grabbed the captain's shoulder. "Where are we going?" "To the source," Liarn froze. "The source of what?" The captain looked at him through his visor. "Of the thing your galaxy buried." He paused, and forgot. Another quake, this one stronger. The atrium cracked open. Liarn's stomach dropped as a fracture tore straight through the floor beneath them, splitting the Academy Plaza in half. Through the widening gap, Liarn saw something moving in the depths, not a creature, not machinery, not a natural formation, a structure, a massive circular construct, older than the Academy, older than the city, older than the planet's terraforming lattice. It pulsed with that alien light, each beat sending shockwaves through the ground. "It's a lock," the wiry human murmured. "No," the older human corrected. "It was a lock." Liarn felt cold. "Was?" The captain's voice dropped to a whisper. "Because now, it's opening." The forgotten truth, they reached a broken staircase spiraling downward. The humans moved quickly. Lern followed, breath ragged. As they descended, the older man spoke softly, almost to himself. The galaxy always believed humans were dangerous because of violence. He shook his head. That was never the reason. Lern slowed. Then why was war banned? The staircase shook under another tremor. Dust fell like snow. The older human continued. War wasn't banned to protect the galaxy from humanity. He looked up. To protect humanity from the galaxy. Lern stopped moving entirely. The captain turned. Keep walking. It gets worse from here. Lern's voice cracked. What could be worse than this? The captain pointed down through the fractured layers of the academy, toward the ancient structure pulsing like a beating heart. That, the captain said. That's what the ban was about. Lern felt his blood run cold. What is it? The older human answered quietly. A door. He looked at Lern with weary eyes. And something ancient is trying to come through. Lern's legs nearly folded. His voice was barely a whisper. Why here? The wiry human didn't look up from his scanner. Wrong question, Lern blinked. Then what's the right one? The wiry human met his eyes. Why now? Lern felt the metal disc in his palm grow warm, as if responding, as if aware, and somewhere deep beneath the academy, something massive pushed against the... Toward a sound rose, a low, resonant hum that did not belong in any frequency known to science, a sound that felt like the memory of fear. The older human murmured, almost reverently, it's been sleeping for thousands of years. The captain finished. But your upload woke it. Lern trembled. No. The captain placed a firm, steady hand on his shoulder. This is not your fault. Lern looked at him, desperate. Then why did this happen? The captain's voice softened. Because truth is dangerous, he paused, and because the galaxy forgot who humans used to be. Lern stared at him. The captain took a breath. Guardians, the word echoed through the broken stairwell, through the cracked floors, through the ancient door far below. Lern felt something shift inside him, a realization, a fear, a tiny spark of hope. And then, the ancient door deep below them began to open. Kale had felt fear before, training drills, dark sector simulations, even the single time he nearly depressurized a shuttle door. But nothing compared to the quiet now settling in the bridge. It wasn't normal quiet. It was purposeful, as if the universe itself held its breath. The dim, tactical lights flickered across the crew's faces, turning them into silhouettes carved from tension. Screens pulsed with red diagnostics. The hum of the reactor deepened, vibrating through Kale's boots like a heartbeat preparing for battle. Ahead of them, the holographic map of the galaxy showed blinking distress beacons across Academy networks. Yellow, orange, then flashing red. Across the bridge, Captain Imani didn't speak for several seconds. She only stared at the cascading alerts as though each one was a prophecy. Kyle swallowed. She knows, he thought. She knew something like this might happen. Could see it in the way her fingers trembled once and then stilled. Like she forced herself to stop being human for the sake of those depending on her. Finally, she whispered, 1 million views in the first 12 minutes. That's not panic. That's ignition. Kyle felt his throat tighten. He dared to speak, Captain. The galaxy's afraid of us. No, she replied quietly, turning toward him. They're remembering us. A shiver crawled along his spine. The archives. React. The silent moment snapped when the archive core began to shake. A deep mechanical groan rolled through the hull, and every tech on the bridge flinched. Kale's console flickered with a new alert. Live feed, sync request. Unknown authority, priority, sovereign level. Override possible only by creator key holders. His pulse stopped. Captain? His voice cracked. She stepped closer and read the screen. Her eyes narrowed. That request signature, it's human. But old, very old. How old? Kale asked. She inhaled slowly. Before the warband, before the council. Before the migration fleets, Kale's thoughts spun. Before everything we were taught, he murmured. He felt something cold and electric at the base of his skull, like standing beneath a thundercloud just before it. Breaks open. The archive wasn't just waking up, it was remembering. Whispers of faith in Metal Walls technician Rourke. The oldest man on the bridge wiped sweat from his brow. "I don't like this," he muttered. "This ship was built long after the old wars. Nothing from that era should still exist in its systems." Captain Imani didn't answer. Her gaze remained locked on the pulsing archive screen. Kyle noticed her hand tightening around a small black pendant hanging from her belt, something she always wore but never explained. He had once asked about it. She only said, "A reminder that not everything in the universe is random." He watched now as her thumb brushed the pendant again. Then she whispered, barely audible, "Guide us." Kale wasn't religious. Most humans in the academy weren't because faith had been quietly discouraged after the exile. But moments like this, moments when the ship felt alive beneath his feet, when ancient codes awakened as if answering a voice older than civilization, even Kale found himself whispering internally, "Please let this not be the day humanity disappears." The transmission that should not exist, a new window, burst to life across the command screens, static, then shadows. Then a voice, male, controlled, unmistakably human. "This is Commander Aurek of the First Dawn contingent." Kale's heart slammed. The First Dawn wasn't a squad. It was myth, the first humans to leave the solar exodus, the ones who vanished into uncharted space and were never seen again. Every academy class treated them like legends, and now one of them was speaking. Captain Imani leaned forward. "Impossible." The voice continued, crisp, calm, terrifying. "If you are receiving this, Protocol Last Mercy has been engaged. The galaxy has become aware of what was locked away. You must listen carefully. Humans are not preparing for war." Kale released a breath he didn't know he held. But then the voice added, "War is already moving toward you." The bridge froze. "This message is not history. What you are seeing is current. Our vessel, the Resolute, is not alone. Something ancient is following us." Kale felt his chest hollow out. Captain Imani whispered, "Ancient? What does he mean?" And then the screen shifted again, showing grainy live footage. Kale's lungs locked. Because behind the human ship in the feed, massive, silent, moving with dreadful precision, was a structure of dark metal arcs and moving geometric plates, rotating like an impossible machine alive or something worse. Rourke's voice shook. That's not a fleet. That's a construct. And not one of ours," Kyle murmured. Internal conflict. Kale's breaking point fear clawed deeper than he expected. For a moment, Kyle hated himself. Hated how small he felt. How out of place. How undeserving of being on this bridge. He was just a technician. A background figure in humanity's story. "What am I doing here?" he thought. His hands trembled on the console. He forced them to stop. Beside him, Captain Imani said softly without turning, "You think you're not ready?" Kyle stiffened. "How? I know that look," she said. "I had it the first time I sat in this chair." He swallowed hard. His voice was barely a whisper. "Captain, if that thing is real, if this is really happening, I'm scared I'll fail you." Imani finally turned. And she smiled, not reassuringly but truthfully. "Kyle, courage isn't about not shaking." She nodded toward the screen with the silent alien construct. "It's about choosing to stay when every instinct tells you to run." A breath escaped him. Somehow that was enough. He straightened. And the trembling slowed. "The message continues." Commander Aurek's transmission returned. "We tried to contain the threat. We couldn't. It was designed long before human memory, long before any of you were born." The image zoomed in on the construct. Kale felt sick. It was beautiful in the most horrifying way, every surface shifting like clockwork woven from shadows. A design that felt almost purposeful. Aurek's voice lowered. "They called themselves the Architects of Silence, a species that believed creation should return to stillness. We fought them thousands of years ago. We sealed them away. We paid the cost." Captain Imani shook her head. "This isn't in any record," Kyle whispered, "because someone didn't want it to be." On screen, Aurek's face leaned close, scarred, exhausted, but alive. "We are trying to outrun them. But they've adapted." Static swallowed part of the message. Then one final sentence slid through. "If you're watching this, prepare. They will come for any system that remembers humanity's fire." Then the feed cut, leaving only silence on the bridge. A thick, suffocating silence. Kale's legs felt numb. His throat burned, so the footage wasn't historical. He said weakly. Captain Imani finished for him. It's live, and it's a warning. What the galaxy does next alarms triggered across the bridge. Incoming data bursts. Thousands. Millions. Galactic networks. Academy forums. Station broadcasts, civilian channels, were erupting with clips of the transmission. Systems were shutting down in fear. Some worlds declared emergency evacuations. Others prepared for defensive mobilizations. A chorus of panic spread through the stars. Tech Rourke slammed his fist against the console. Who leaked the human ban? Who unleashed all this? Kale felt ice crawl down his spine as realization hit him. Lyraven, he whispered. The data technician from the Academy. Captain Imani exhaled sharply. Kyle stared at the darkness beyond the bridge glass. She didn't leak history. His voice was hollow. She leaked a live war. The bridge lights dimmed as the transmission stabilized. Kale felt his pulse in his fingertips, in his teeth, in the hollow behind his ribs. Everything inside him tightened as the live footage unfolded. The Resolute drifted through a field of fractured light. No stars, no nebulae, nothing familiar. Just a cold emptiness threaded with shimmering particles that reminded Kale of dust caught in a sunbeam. Except these particles moved with intention, gathering, circling. Captain Imani whispered, "This isn't natural space." The recording zoomed as if controlled by a trembling hand. Behind the Resolute, that thing moved. The architect construct rotated slowly, its segments unfolding like petals of an obsidian flower. Geometric plates slid in and out of itself with clockwork precision, guided by mathematics older than biology. It made no sound, yet Kale felt it, like a pressure behind the eyes. Rourke backed away from his console. "Turn it off," he muttered. Nobody should see this. Kale wanted to move, to speak, to breathe. But he couldn't. The construct's presence hollowed him, pressed into his thoughts, made the hairs on his arms stand up. He whispered under his breath, without meaning to, "God, what are we looking at?" Imani heard him. But instead of rebuking him, she said softly, "Something that shouldn't exist. Something that wanted silence instead of creation." Kale swallowed. She wasn't talking like a captain. She was talking like someone who felt the universe watching. The desperate prayer. The audio crackled again. Static washed over the bridge like icy rain. "If anyone hears us..." A man's voice, strained, breathless. Kale leaned closer. That voice didn't sound ancient. It sounded alive. The camera on the Resolute shook violently, revealing glimpses of the ship's interior. Sparks flying, crew running, lights strobing. "We are not alone out here." A thud shook the pair of speakers, and a new voice, a woman's, yelled something in the background. The words were lost, swallowed by static. Captain Imani frowned. "That's not Aurek, that's someone else," Kale whispered. "Which means the crew is still alive." Rourke huffed. "Alive while being hunted by a machine that looks like a math equation possessed by a demon. Great comfort, that is." But Kale wasn't listening. His chest tightened in a strange, burning way. Someone was praying in the recording. A quiet voice, barely audible beneath the chaos. "Help us, whoever you are." The bridge fell utterly silent. The prayer wasn't a chant or ritual. It wasn't cultural. It wasn't rehearsed. It was the primal universal plea of something small calling to something vast. For a moment, Kale felt a warmth in his ribs, tiny, fleeting, like someone had brushed a hand against his heartbeat. No one else reacted. No one else felt it. Kale didn't know what it meant, but he knew it wasn't an accident. The construct moves. The feed shifted once more, this time showing the construct from above. It was transforming segments retracted, rings aligned. A lattice of luminous symbols rippled across its surface, patterns that hurt to look at. Rourke's voice cracked. "It's calculating something." Captain Imani's jaw tightened. Kyle enhanced the pattern trace. His fingers flew across the console. He amplified the light lines, isolated their movements, overlaid them on a hologram. Then his breath caught in his throat. Because the pattern was not random. It was a map, a vector, a trajectory straight toward us, Kyle whispered. Imani turned sharply. "You're sure?" He nodded, throat dry. "Whatever that construct is, It just plotted a path directly to this sector. The bridge temperature seemed to drop. Galaxy in collapse. New alerts flooded the screens. Outer Rim, full evacuation, initiated Valorian ascendancy. Martial law declared Kyrian worlds. Borders sealed Academy broadcast sectors. Down to 11% stability and one more. Mindstream forums, human feed trending number 1.8. Billion views. Kale stared at the numbers. Billions. The galaxy wasn't reacting to politics anymore. Or history. Or warnings. They were reacting to fear. Imani exhaled slowly. This is going to break entire civilizations. Rourke rubbed his face. Why did Lyravan upload it? Why now? Kale answered softly. She thought she was exposing a cover-up. Imani nodded slowly. She didn't know she was opening a door we sealed 10,000 years ago. Kale felt a weight settle on him. Captain, if the galaxy knows, the architects know. Imani closed her eyes for a moment. Then the architects just learned where to find us. Kale's stomach twisted. Internal conflict. Kale's quiet split. Stepped back from his console. Suddenly his reflection stared at him in the darkened glass. Pale, exhausted, eyes wide. A boy pretending not to be afraid. For a moment he asked himself, what am I fighting for? Humanity, the truth? Or just the hope that someone bigger than us hasn't abandoned us? He didn't know. He only knew that if he froze now, the universe would burn. He closed his eyes. Steady breath. Steady your heartbeat. Please, he whispered, barely audible. Don't let me fail. He didn't say it to the ship, or the captain, or any listening AI. He said it upward, inward, to the unseen architecture behind creation, whatever name it held, and something in him steadied. Just a little, just enough. The message reboots. The feed flickered again. Sparks, shouting, metal screeching. Then RX's face snapped back into frame, sweat on his brow, blood on his jaw, eyes blazing. If you're receiving this, listen carefully. Kale held his breath. They don't just find us by technology. RX gasped as something boomed against the Resolute's hull. They find us by memory, Imani whispered. Memory? The architects believe creation made one mistake, humanity. A species that refused silence. A species that prayed even in fire. Kale felt his heart stop. If the galaxy remembers you, really, remembers you, then they will come. The feed shook. Violently, Orek shouted something. Unintelligible. Then he looked directly into the camera and said the last words the bridge would hear for the next minute. Do not let the galaxy forget what gave us strength, not our weapons, not our rage, our will, our unity, our faith, whatever shape it takes. The screen went black, black but not silent. A low mechanical hum vibrated through the speakers. Kyle froze. Captain Imani leaned forward. Rourke whispered, What is that? Kale's console flashed with a new warning. Foreign signal detected. Origin unknown, decrypting. Kyle felt sweat form along his jaw. Captain, the feed didn't end. Imani's eyes sharpened. It switched sources. The bridge lights flickered. A single line appeared on every screen. Cold, geometric, inhuman. The silence remembers. Kale felt every bone in his body go cold. The construct on screen began to move. Fast, too fast, straight toward the Resolute, straight toward them. The rehook. When fear gains a face just before the feed collapsed, before static swallowed everything, one final image burned into the bridge screens. A close-up of the construct's core where shifting geometry parted, revealing something like an eye. Cold, mechanical, ancient, aware. And it turned, slowly, deliberately, toward the camera, toward humanity, toward Kale. The feed cut to black. Kale's whisper trembled in the darkness. It sees us. The silence after the feed cut was heavier than the chaos before it. The bridge lights flickered once, twice, and then steadied, though the crew felt no relief. Every console beeped and hummed like a heartbeat in a graveyard. Kale pressed his palms to the console, fingers trembling. It saw us, he whispered, still staring at the darkened screens. Captain Imani's visor reflected only the faint red glow of alerts. No, she said quietly. We saw it, Kale shook his head. No, it looked at us. And not with sensors, not with cameras, with intent. Rourke's voice cracked from the side. Intent? That's not science. That's madness. Kale's throat tightened. Madness was the only word his mind could clutch to make sense of the impossible. The construct, massive, silent, geometric, had awareness. Not artificial intelligence as the Academy studied it. Not algorithmic calculation. Something alive by rules beyond human comprehension. And it knew. The calm before collision, Imani turned, facing Kale directly, her tone calm but razor sharp. Kale, get the tactical simulations running. We need a prediction vector. How fast can it close in? Kale swallowed, realizing his fingers were slick with sweat. He tapped the console, the live data streaming faster than the human eye could parse. The map of space, once serene, now churned with ghostly grids, unknown anomalies, and blinking warning nodes. He whispered to himself, "Everything we know, everything we've built, is nothing here," the captain noticed. "Kale, I can't. It's moving faster than any natural physics should allow. Faster than light. Not possible. But..." He froze as a simulation overlay blinked on. "It predicts us. Every maneuver we make. Before we make it," Rourke swore. "So it's not just hunting. It's thinking." Imani nodded. "It's waiting for humanity's mistake," Kale swallowed. A memory he had tried to suppress rose unbidden. His grandmother, years ago, murmuring during a quiet night on Earth. "Sometimes it's not the enemy we see that tests our courage. It's the one that sees us first." He pressed his palms harder against the console. That quiet wisdom felt alive now, almost divine. A small, steadying flame amidst the encroaching darkness. The call to action. The ship's comm system buzzed sharply. A new incoming transmission. The tone was different from Aurex, urgent, clipped, human, but entirely untraceable. Imani activated it. Unknown voice. "Kyle, do you copy?" "You are closer than you realize. The architects are not blind. They are patience and precision. They will not stop until they understand the fire within humans." Kale's breath hitched. "Who is this?" Voice. "One who has walked this path before. One who prayed when all seemed lost. Listen carefully. The fire you carry is not in your technology. It is in your will. The galaxy's survival depends on it." Imani's jaw tightened. Cryptic as always, Kale whispered will. The fire. Somewhere deep in his chest, a tiny spark flared. The humans on the Resolute weren't helpless, not yet, not ever. Even in the face of something ancient. Even against architects who could see across time and space. Even in the darkest moment. Humans had will, and it had a rhythm, a pulse, that no construct could ever fully predict. The internal reckoning. Kale looked down at his hands. They shook. He could feel the cold metal of the console beneath his palms, but beneath that, something warm. Something human. Fear. Yes, but also courage. And a strange faith, not in chance, not in luck, but in humanity's persistence, he murmured softly. "If we fall, let it be not because we lacked courage, but because we dared too much." Rourke glanced at him, squinting. "Kid, you talking to yourself again?" Kale shook his head. "No, talking to us. Talking to everyone who refused to bow to fear before." Imani watched him silently, her expression unreadable. But Kale felt it. She recognized the fire now. The spark that the first Dawn and Lyraven's upload had ignited. Somewhere, in the cold calculus of architects, that spark was now visible. The approach on the screens. The construct continued its silent glide across space, now unmistakably aware of the Resolute's position and trajectory. Its rotation had changed, aligning toward the human vessel with perfect precision. Rourke muttered, "They're not just closing in. They're centering on us, adjusting their approach," Kale whispered almost to himself. "Like they know what we'll do before we do it." Imani snapped, "Exactly. And that's why humans survive." Kale blinked. "Wait, what?" Imani's voice was calm yet carried weight. Humans survive not because they are predictable or because they are strongest or because they are fastest. They survive because of one thing architects cannot calculate. Kyle waited. Heart hammering, willpower, creativity, empathy, chaos. She leaned close to him, voice low, steady. "When the galaxy expects us to fold, we adapt. When fear surrounds us, we leap. When the impossible stares us down, we persist. That they cannot see coming." Kale felt his chest tighten, not from fear but from awe. For a moment he understood why Lyraven's leak had been dangerous, and why it had been necessary. The galaxy was about to witness humanity's defiance, and it would not be gentle. The first strike, the construct shifted suddenly on the screens. It released what looked like a wave of energy, geometric lines spiraling outward at near instant speed. Alarms screamed. The Resolute shook violently. Kale grabbed the console, bracing. Rourke shouted, "Brace! Brace! Brace!" The captain's voice rang out. "Stand ready! Humans adapt. Humans endure. Humans fight! Remember who we are." The bridge seemed to shake not just from the strike, but from the resolve of every human on board, every human in the galaxy. In that instant, Kyle felt something surge through him. Electric, undeniable, almost divine. The construct's first attack hit the void of space and faltered. It recalibrated, unsure. The humans were different, alive, defiant, unpredictable, and that defiance was its first real obstacle. The rehook, humanity stirs on the screens. The Resolute's crew rallied, moving with synchronized determination. Their weapon systems flickered alive, but more importantly, their will burned brighter. Kyle whispered in awe, barely audible. They're showing them we're not afraid, and somewhere, in the mechanical depth of the architect's vision, something shifted. Recognition, surprise, unease, because the humans weren't just surviving, they were beginning to fight back. And as Kale watched, his breath caught at one thought. The galaxy had forgotten humanity's fire, but now it remembered. The bridge of the Resolute was chaos contained. Every console flickered with warnings. Every screen displayed a fraction of the construct's movements across space. The hum of the engines seemed alive, vibrating through Kale's bones, echoing the heartbeat of a ship that had survived centuries of human ingenuity. Kale pressed his hands to the rail, trying to steady himself. He had stared into the construct's core on the feed, into the mechanical eye that watched them, and for a moment, he thought the universe itself had gone cold. But now, amidst the panic, he saw it: determination. The humans on the Resolute were moving with precision, coordinating maneuvers that no alien fleet could have predicted. Each action wasn't just a response, it was a declaration. Captain Imani's voice cut through the tension. "Kale, divert power to the pulse shields. Feed the engines. Prepare to adapt." Kyle obeyed, his fingers flying over the console. Sweat stung his eyes. The construct's first wave had failed, but he knew better than to assume it would stop. No. It was learning. The architects hesitate. The screens displayed the construct's movements. Its geometric plates rotated, aligning, predicting, and unleashing another surge of energy. This one faster, sharper, aimed directly at the Resolute. Yet the pulse shields held. The construct froze mid-rotation, almost imperceptibly. Then it recalibrated. Something was off in its calculations. Kale leaned closer. It's struggling." Imani's eyes narrowed. "Why?" Kale swallowed. "Humans are unpredictable. Not random. Not chaotic by mistake. Purposefully. Alive," Rourke muttered beside him, almost incredulous. "You mean it didn't account for willpower?" Kale nodded. "That's exactly it. Humans fight not because they're the fastest or strongest, but because we refuse to give up, and it throws off anything that thinks it can calculate us." The captain exhaled sharply, almost reverently. "Our fire. It's visible to them, and they're unsure what to do with it." Kyle felt a tremor of hope. Humans had survived impossible odds before, and maybe, just maybe, they could survive this. The first human counterattack on the screens, the Resolute's crew executed a synchronized move. They launched microsatellite drones not as weapons but as mirrors. Each drone reflected light, energy, and even parts of the construct's own emitted frequencies. Kale's eyes widened. "They're using its own attack against it." Imani's voice was calm, precise. "Human ingenuity. They've always adapted." The construct recoiled as its energy pulses reflected back. Sparks of internal activity shifted across its geometric plates. It paused, calculated, adjusted, and then paused again. Kale swallowed hard. Something ancient and cold in the void of space hesitated for the first time. Rourke muttered in disbelief. They didn't account for this. It's confused." Kyle felt it in his chest, an echo of awe, the same feeling he had the first time he saw the human crew praying before mobilizing. That quiet faith, that defiance in the face of overwhelming odds, it was visible. And it mattered. Internal conflict. Kale's moment of truth. Kale leaned against the console, feeling the heat of adrenaline and fear swirl in his chest. For the first time, he truly understood what Lyraven had risked. Exposing the footage. Not history, but live mobilization. It had been dangerous, terrifying, potentially catastrophic, and yet it had reminded the galaxy and themselves of what humanity truly was. Kale whispered to himself, "If I freeze now, we all die. If I step forward, we might just survive." He realized his fear was a luxury. The Resolute depended on him, not his hesitation. The galaxy depended on them. He pressed forward, overriding secondary systems, rerouting energy through shields, engines, and navigation matrices simultaneously. Each decision was instinct, calculation, and trust in human ingenuity blended into one. The captain noticed. "Kale, you're ready. Keep it steady." Kyle nodded. For the first time, he believed it, not luck. Not coincidence, human will, the architects adapt. Slowly. The construct shifted. Faster. Sharper. Its energy pulses struck the mirrored drones, but instead of overwhelming them, it began to analyze. Each reflected pulse fed into its internal lattice. It moved, but more cautiously now. Every maneuver was calculated, but tentative. Kale whispered, "It's burning." Imani nodded grimly. "Yes, and humans don't give it the answers it wants." Rourke, ever the skeptic, muttered, "It's like they can't process our defiance." Kale's heart swelled. That's exactly it. Humans refuse to be predictable, refuse to be subdued, refuse to be erased, and the construct, ancient, colossal, perfect, was suddenly flawed in its perception. It had never met a species that refused to yield. A quiet miracle, in the tension-filled void. Kale felt something subtle but undeniable. A rhythm, a pattern in the chaos, almost divine. Not God in a shape, not angels descending, but a guiding current. A quiet intelligence behind creation that allowed humans to survive this long despite everything. Kyle whispered softly, almost ashamed. "Not luck. Someone wanted us to survive." Imani glanced at him, expression softened. "Faith is not weakness, Kale. It is the spark that drives fire into the impossible." Kale nodded. The construct loomed on the screens. Its lattice of plates shivered like steel in the wind. Its eye shifted toward them, sensing, measuring. And then it hesitated again. The rehook. Humanity defies expectation. The drones formed a ring around the Resolute. Energy pulses collided with mirrored reflections, creating an explosive halo of light in the dark expanse of space. Kyle held his breath as the construct recoiled, then slowly pivoted away, calculating, measuring, unsure of the next step. For the first time, the galaxy saw it. Humans could not be predicted. And somewhere in the void, the construct realized it was dealing with something far older than itself. Kale's whisper cut through the bridge, barely audible but filled with wonder. "They thought they could erase us. But they forgot what humans do when they fight for each other." The captain's voice was steady, commanding, calm. "Hold the line, everyone. The fire has only just begun." And far beyond the galaxy, where no sensor could see, the architects shifted, adapting, but uncertain now, because humans were awake, and humanity's fire had ignited. Kale stood on the bridge of the Resolute, the hum of engines reverberating through his bones. Every display blinked red, yet there was no panic, only focus. The human crew moved with purpose, their actions precise, their courage unspoken but palpable. Across space, the architect's construct loomed like a black sun, its geometric plates shifting, folding, and rotating with inhuman precision. Every action was calculated yet imperfect, because the humans refused predictability. Kyle swallowed, gripping the console. He could feel it. This was the moment where history would decide if humanity survived. Not by technology alone, not by sheer force, but by willpower, ingenuity, and faith. The architect's strike. The construct unleashed its first wave of pulses, a lattice of energy slicing through the void, faster than light, precise, deadly. Kale's fingers danced across the controls, rerouting power to the pulse shields, coordinating countermeasures, and activating the mirrored drone network. Energy collided, light twisted, Sparks danced across the empty darkness of space. The crew's synchronized movements turned chaos into choreography. Every human acted with creativity the construct could not anticipate. Every decision carried unpredictability. Tiny deviations, sparks of ingenuity that the architect's calculations failed to account for. The construct hesitated, and for the first time hesitation was a victory. The human spirit strikes Kale's gaze shifted to the forward monitors. The drones reflected not just energy but the construct's patterns. It tried to adjust, to predict, but humans did not yield to prediction. Rourke, muttering under his breath, finally smiled. By the stars. They can't do it. They just can't see it coming. Kale realized the truth in that simple exclamation. The humans aboard the Resolute weren't relying on luck. They were relying on what had defined them for millennia. Their relentless will, their empathy, their refusal to be extinguished. Even in the void of space, in the face of a force that predated their civilization, the human spirit burned brighter than any star, a quiet divine presence. As the energy pulses collided, Kale felt a subtle warmth sweep through the bridge. Not light, not sound. Not even a physical sensation, just a quiet certainty. He whispered softly, "Not luck. Someone wanted us to survive." Imani, watching him, nodded. Faith is not a crutch. It is the spark that keeps fire alive in the impossible. And for the first time, Kale understood. The universe had always been bigger than humanity, but humanity's courage was a force no machine, no calculation, no ancient architect could fully comprehend. The turning point. The construct, massive and perfect, faltered. The mirrored drones and the Resolute's ingenuity created anomalies it could not compute. Energy patterns reflected back, arcs of light and force twisting against its lattice. Kale realized what they had to do. He barked orders, everyone executed with precision. The crew moved like a single organism, human minds and instincts intertwined. The construct rotated, recalibrated. And then something unexpected happened. It paused, it seemed to recognize, for the first time, that these humans were not merely obstacles. They were alive, defiant and unpredictable in ways no calculation could contain. Kale felt his chest tighten with awe. The climactic maneuver, prepare the main vector, Kale shouted. The Resolute adjusted its course, weaving between energy pulses while the drones reflected attacks in a perfect arc. Kale pushed the engines beyond nominal capacity, feeling the hum of the ship as if it were alive, lending its power to human will. Energy collided with energy, sparks arced through the void. The construct strained, recalculating with every move, but humanity refused to be constrained by equations. Kyle's heart pounded, and he whispered to himself, "If this fails." At least we fought, but failure was no longer an option. Not for humans. Not for the galaxy that had forgotten what they were capable of. The moment of triumph. The mirrored drones completed their final formation. The construct unleashed a massive pulse. Then the energy reflected, amplified, and collided against it. There was a deafening silence. For a moment, everything froze. The void of space seemed to hold its breath. Then, the construct fragmented. Its plates scattered, energy dissipating, its perfect calculations undone by chaos, ingenuity, and human will. On the bridge, Kale exhaled, staggering back. The crew cheered, but it was not just relief. It was recognition. Recognition of what humans were. Courageous, creative, resilient. The galaxy had watched, and the humans had reminded it. They could not be predicted, erased, or subdued. The subtle divine thread. Kale looked at the stars through the bridge viewport. Somewhere beyond the construct's destruction, a faint glimmer traced across the void, a reminder that survival was never mere chance. He whispered softly in awe, "Not luck. Someone wanted us here." Imani placed a hand on his shoulder. "Sometimes the universe rewards those who dare to endure. Sometimes faith and will are stronger than any force." Kale nodded. Somewhere deep inside he knew this wasn't the end, not yet. Humanity would face threats far greater than any machine or alien architect. But now they remembered. They had awakened, and the galaxy could no longer doubt them. Resolution. Humanity remembers. The Resolute floated through the aftermath, crew exhausted but alive. Messages began to flood the galaxy as the construct's remnants spread signals of confusion back to the void. Kyle finally allowed himself to breathe. The fear, the doubt, the hesitation, they were gone, replaced by awe and the understanding of what humans could accomplish when united by courage, faith, and ingenuity. Somewhere in the dark expanse, the galaxy had seen the fire of humanity. Somewhere unseen, the quiet intelligence behind creation, the subtle, guiding hand allowed it to burn brightly. Kale whispered one final thought. We are not just survivors. We are humanity, and we will endure.